Meridan Zerner with the Cooper Clinic joins us this afternoon to talk more about how April is Stress Awareness Month. And I feel like this deserves more than 1 month, Meridan. I feel like people are constantly stressed out for different levels of life. And it just seems to be never ending. So I would think that having some focus on how to manage stress has got to really be everyone's priority, right?
Yes. And I think we can all appreciate that stress happens. Like, it is just a part of our lives and it kind of ebbs and flows. And so it's really more about how we choose to manage it. And at the same time, really appreciate the impact on our health. So according to the American Institute of Stress, 77% of people experience the kind of stress that affects their physical health. So it really is a mind-body connection where there are tools to manage it.
The other thing about dealing with stress is, for so many people, they feel they have to deal with the stress by themselves because they don't think they can tell their family. They don't think they can tell their friends about it. How do you break through that wall of being able to share what's going on with you?
I think first, appreciating that when we say we're all in it together, we genuinely are. Even looking at the statistics, we've got teens struggling, adults struggling. The numbers are pretty impactful. So knowing that the person sitting next to you or the person sitting across from you is very likely experiencing a similar level of stretch, honestly, should drive some community. And that's really where we start a conversation. And in the workplace and at home, able to say, yeah, I'm kind of feeling this intensity right now, and recognizing some of the symptoms in yourself, which could manifest in, certainly being snappy or irritable, but it could be fatigue, headaches, muscle tension, sleep issues. Over time, chronic stress over the course of days, weeks, months, those become health conditions. Those become heart disease, diabetes, prediabetes. And so noticing that these challenges in your life, physical challenges, can be rooted in stress is the start of the conversation.
What are some of the ways that we start to tackle it?
So I think about the big three, and at Cooper Clinic, we always like to offer up 3 opportunities that we know are going to have a lot of impact. And the first is going to be, of course, exercise and movement. That's what Cooper is known for. But while the recommendations for health are going to be, yes, 30 minutes most days, when we think about even stress, even 10 minutes, I talk about being intentional about getting 10 minutes of movement is enough to get a stress response, a stress lowering response. So whether it's a therapeutic walk, whether it's, a short bicycle ride, even 10 minutes will radically improve your profile, lower blood pressure, and maybe help you get that better night of sleep.
One thing that you mentioned when you talked about some of the long-term effects of stress, they also, when you talk about lack of sleep and headaches and possible heart disease and whatever, those sound like symptoms of long-haul COVID as well.
They could very well. A lot of those symptoms parallel and can mimic one another. And even having COVID is a stress, and potentially you think about the inflammation that could be left over in the body that signals a stress response to the brain. And that is the second tier of the big three. So if we have some movement as a stress relieving component, and we think about a better night of sleep as a stress relieving component, talk to your doctor, talk to a registered dietitian. There are things like mindful relaxation exercises that we can do each night. There's light stretching, there's melatonin conversations, there's extra magnesium at night. Lavender can relax people, calming music. So there are going to be tools that would be worth trying just to see if they make a difference for you. The third tier, and these 3 habits are the cornerstone to a less stressed life. As a dietitian, my favorite, that diet, the foods that are colorful, they're whole, they can actually help the body combat stress.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, I think when you're stressed, the last thing you're trying to do is meal prep or really think about, the quality of food maybe that you're consuming. You're just in a crunch. A lot of times people are stressed out about not having enough time for things. That how difficult is it to get America's, diet back on track when it comes to stressful eating?
Certainly difficult, but doable. And so I think appreciating in the world of knowledge empowerment that when we're stressed, the communication that your body is going to get from the brain is, hey, we got to get the serotonin up. We need that calming, feel-good neurotransmitter to do its job. And we can get a little bit of a bump in serotonin through carbohydrates. And so typically, if we're not mindful, our body's like, hey, bring on the chips and queso, bring on the brownies. But what we're really able to do here is work from a healthier complex carbohydrate. You get the same kind of therapeutic calming response from rolled oats, from beans, from quinoa, from a sweet potato. So know that it's chemistry, it's brain chemistry, and it's complex, but that we can choose these quality carbs to kind of calm the system. We can know that protein, particularly the lean proteins, they help with higher levels of dopamine and norepinephrine. And that means alertness, focus, concentration, motivation. That can be helpful as well. And so, of course, to start off your day with a lean protein certainly could help mind and body, brain connect. And the brightly colored stuff, the fruits, the vegetables, you're getting soluble fiber here. The soluble fiber feeds the healthy bacteria in your gut. That actually affects mood and how we perceive anxiety. Now, this is not a cure. It is not going to take the place of anxiety medications or depression medications. But when we think about stress awareness and stress support, yes, these big three play a huge role.
At what point, though, do you start getting into medicinal help?
I think it's always important to recognize, when do you need more help? You know, to what degree is this affecting your life? And this is where you might want to ask friends and family as well. Hey, you know, what do you notice? Because that's where we go to the trained professional. That's where we go to the psychiatrist, psychologist, the social worker, the counselor. If things really are overwhelming you to the point that there's that either that sense of hopelessness or the sadness that can be clinically diagnosed and does need a higher level of care.
Let's talk about that topic with kids. I mean, the pandemic has put a doozy on everyone's mood. I think everything's been shifted around. It's hard to accept change when we didn't ask for it. You know, everyone's kind of in the same boat on that level, but kids especially have had a lot of change to deal with because they're pretty routine based when they're the school aged, right?
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention just pulled together a study looking at the last couple of years, indicating that 44% of our kids were really experiencing pretty extreme stress. And so I think we do appreciate that the unknown is stressful, that, you know, just worry about health and about parents and people getting sick, some people passing away. We need to have conversations with our kids about what is in our control, what is okay, trying to keep a little bit more of that positive mindset when possible. We can certainly feed them a little bit better. We can be intentional with them and say, hey, we're all going on the family walk together so that they're getting some of that movement that we know can be supportive. But I do feel like the younger folks have really perhaps struggled more so than any other age group.
Let's talk about the other end of the demographic. Say if it's your parents or your grandparents are dealing with this, in a lot of cases, they've got to deal with this by themselves. How do we not forget them?
The isolation, I think, for the older set, for the classic crew, I think that is likely the most daunting. And again, I'm not a therapist, but I can only imagine that piece would be incredibly difficult in terms of managing anxiety and depression, and just the human connection that we know is integral as human beings, like to be able to have live connection, to be able to see loved ones, give them a hug, that kind of thing. So when we think about services that care for the elderly, and we can be more aware of even the phone call, even the FaceTime, making sure that they're eating well, checking in on their sleep habits, the things from a health perspective, from a dietitian's perspective that can bolster their mood, making those available to them either through information or conversation goes a long way.
Go ahead. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I did. I had one more thing. Talk about the importance of something like, I know Dr. Kenneth Cooper is very devout, and talk about the importance of perhaps believing in a higher spiritual being and faith.
In whatever your belief is, understanding that there is a greater good, that there is a higher power, that there are some things that, while they are not within our control, that they will be okay. All of that comes, I think, under the faith umbrella and serves not only younger people, but really all ages. When we look at the folks that live the longest with the least incidence of disease, they're affectionately called the blue zones, the areas around the globe where they live long and live well. One of the factors that they look at is they have a strong sense of faith. So appreciating, yes, it's the vegetables and it's the movement, but it's a sense of purpose, it's community and connection, and a sense of faith. So that absolutely makes sense when we think about the whole human, mind and body.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
As much as it's not meant to be judgmental at all, food is simply food and energy. And it's sometimes about minimizing something or maximizing something. I think it's important to remember that alcohol is a depressant. And it can be fun and perhaps people enjoy it in moderation. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about Stress Awareness Month, alcohol is a depressant. We also know that a diet high in refined sugar can really have an impact on the symptoms of certain mood disorders, such as depression. Mm-hmm. So move toward this healthier whole foods diet. When we can decrease alcohol, we really do set the body up for better mental health. They did the SMILES trial, where the Mediterranean diet was shown to reduce depressive symptoms by 32%.